Testing, testing, we've got to try a new form of live streaming because our microphone cut out the last time. Testing, testing, testing. Mm, You can't test a microphone when you're spilling coffee on yourself. God damn it. Uh, testing, testing, testing. Let's see if anybody's going to show up and show out. Private. Uh, testing, testing. Yeah. So arresting design. Let's see what we can. There we go. Got some numbers. Donation banners. I don't know what those are. If you're in the live chat, please leave a comment as to the suitability of the microphone. Trying it from Rumble Studio. I don't know what I'm doing here in Rumble Studio. Spinmax, good morning, Jojo. Well, I'm here, so everything will work now. Jojo, I don't know if you saw on YouTube earlier, but we did not have a good situation with the microphone. Please let me know how the mic sounds right now. I'm trying Rumble Studio to see if maybe Restream is the problem. I have the same, obviously, headset and microphone right now. Seems to be coming in okay. It was working okay before. Jojo says thumbs up. So Rumble Studio, you can see here, we have the on-screen comments and we have the number of people on each platform displayed. So that's something you can do here in Rumble Studio. I'm thinking maybe Restream is the problem. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of different things that could be the problem. It could be my laptop, it could be this microphone, it could be Restream, it could be the internet. Um, so when something goes wrong, you don't really know what the hell is going on. At least when you're me and you're not a you're not exactly a techie. I mean, I can use this stuff, but when something goes wrong, all I can do is sort of like test, like take this away, take that away, try this thing, try that thing. SpinMax says I can understand you right now. All right, that's good. I think what we'll do is we'll try to continue on here. Maybe going forward, the thing to continue to try out is this Rumble Studio. Maybe Rumble Studio is just better than Restream. As far as I can tell, I also think that Rumble Studio seems to be free. Which, hey, if the interesting thing about Timothy Singleton says, sounds good here. Thank you, Timothy. Appreciate that because we had our stream going earlier and then it just crapped out audio wise. But the thing about Restream is, there's basically a few streaming platforms that people use. Um, StreamYard is the number one that people use. And I went to go check that out. And it used to be they had like a $25 a month tier price, and that's comparable to Restream. Restream's about $19 a month. But then I went and I checked out StreamYard recently. I was like, maybe I get away from Restream, go back to StreamYard. But I noticed that StreamYard doesn't have the $25 tier anymore. Now they have a $45 tier. Not paying $45 a month just a live stream. That's craziness. Um, and they do have a free option, but it's very limited. So maybe the solution is Rumble Studio. But the problem with Rumble Studio is that I haven't used it that much. I used it maybe once or twice, and I don't know all the features. So it may not have all the features. It may crap out at some future point. we, we don't know. Maybe it's I don't know. but it also does seem to be picking up the correct numbers. Like you see at the top, it says X0. That's what I suspect my X number is. Even though on the other one, it was telling me X had some people on it, like saying it had, and I didn't think I had anybody on X listening to this thing. So that's good. Kind of gives you accurate numbers. And you can display them on the screen. Not that they're impressive or anything. But now the other thing is I have a studio here. I could add some graphics. So I don't haven't uploaded any graphics to this one. We got overlays, we got videos, we got backgrounds. We do have audio clips, banners, add a new banner. So I'd have to kind of work on all this. Franklin Fung is here. Good morning. Franklin, can you hear me? What's the audio? Is the audio good? Is the audio bad? We're trying to do an audio check here because we had problems before, Franklin, and so we're trying to see if maybe Rumble Studio, maybe the problem is Restream after all, and maybe Rumble Studio is the way to go. Now, Rumble Studio and Rumble Studio's price is free, as far as I can tell. And they do have these things called campaigns, but I don't have any campaigns here, which are basically ads that you can read, but I don't have any, so I guess I'm not good enough for their campaigns. They don't want old Frankie in the campaigns. Donation banners. I don't know what that is. Also, I don't know what would have now. They have a little pin on timer. Okay, I can pin comments. Like, let's see if I pin this comment. What happens here? Oh, it goes up. That's what that does. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. So I guess that's how you put those things up on screen. Interesting. Interesting. So it has a lot of the same functions as Restream. Now, one of the things we were going to do today was talk about the tiers in the old city metaphor. The NFL has a city metaphor that I use all the time. And we were going to go over the tiers and see if people agreed, if people didn't agree, and so forth. So I think what we could do, maybe also to test out how this would work in, screen sharing and stuff like that in Rumble Studio, we could kind of see it by test it out using this thing here, this thing over here. But how then would I do? Okay, let's check this out. Oh, but I probably need to. Let's move this over here. Uh, learning everything all over again. See. Start screen share. Let's see how this works. Your browser supports screen share. If you want to enable audio capture, you can toggle it on the next step. Continue with screen sharing. Okay. Now this looks familiar. Didn't work. There we go. Um, and let's do, where's the setting for live chat overlay? Let's take this off and this off. And we'll just keep the live chat here. Now, sharing this here. So the idea, if you've never heard me talk about the NFL as a city, this is one of my favorite metaphors. Basically, if you think of the NFL as a city, there's basically three communities. The gated community, where all the highfalutin people live. These are the people who build a lot of big mansions, and they got butlers, and they got maids, and they got all of the nice silverware, and so forth and so on. And these are the teams that are, just perennially in the conversation for the Super Bowl. They're in the gated community. Then you got the middle class. The middle class are the teams that sometimes you're thinking about, they're usually in the playoffs, sometimes not. They're always, they're, depending on the year, they may be competing for the Super Bowl, maybe not. They're in the middle area. And then you have the ghetto. And the ghetto is the teams that are continual losers. And obviously, we're in the ghetto. Um, these are teams that have not won for a long time. They don't look to be especially competitive now. And the idea is that you can climb your way up eventually out of the ghetto and move your way up to different to a different tier. Obviously, if you look at the Lions, that works pretty good. If you look at the Lions, obviously for a long time they were in the ghetto. For a long, long time they were in the ghetto. And then Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes and Jared Goff turned it around, and now they're in the gated community. They made their way all the way up there. And in fact, for a long time, the Kansas City Chiefs, before they got Patrick Mahomes, they were in the ghetto for a long time of the NFL. And then Mahomes comes along with Andy Reid, and bada bing, bada boom, now they're in the gated community. Similarly, the Buffalo Bills had an 18-year playoff drought before Josh Allen came along and McDermott and Bean, and now they're in the gated community. So hopefully you can see this pretty well on screen. Let's see if yeah. And um that's pretty good. All right. So is there anybody who thinks, let me know in the chat, that one of these five teams in the gated community shouldn't be there? The Bills, the Ravens, the Chiefs, the Eagles, and Lions are who I have there. Let me know in the chat. Let me know in the chat. Jojo says, I try to explain this to other Jet fans and I'm called a hater. Truth is, well, anybody, Jojo, who tries to tell you, oh, and that goes up there now. Jojo, anybody who tries to argue with you, we haven't made the playoffs for 14 years, Jojo. There's just no arguing it. We're in the ghetto. You can't not make the playoffs for 14 years and be anywhere but the ghetto, Jojo. I mean, it's just a fact. The way you move around the board is by winning. It's like the way you get out of the ghetto in life is by winning in life, right? Getting more education, getting a better job, then getting promoted, and then so forth and so on. How do you move out of the ghetto in real life? That's how you win at life. And in football, you win football games. And if you're not going to the playoffs, you're not winning football games. And that is the way it is. Same thing with all these teams in the ghetto. I mean, now some teams I'm not sure about, like the Saints. Where do we put the Saints? I'm not sure. The Dolphins, they haven't won a playoff game in a long time, but they did make the playoffs twice so far in McDaniel's tenure. So where do we put them? The Minnesota Vikings, they've been a good team. They've made the playoffs, but they haven't really been real contenders. So they're probably in the middle class, I think. And the Steelers. I mean, the Steelers never have a losing season, but they haven't been, Super Bowl contenders in a long time. So probably the Steelers and the Vikings probably have to go to the middle class, I would say. Miami, I don't know. Is Miami in the ghetto with us or are they in the middle class? What about the Saints? I mean, the Saints really haven't done anything since Drew Brees retired and Sean Payton said, see you later. So I'm not really sure. Yeah. The Spin Max says Lions are at the gate. but not quite in. Yeah, this is a good point. Like, should the gated community be only teams that have made it? Because then what about Buffalo Spin Max? I think for me, the gated community means you are a perennial at this point in time contender for the Super Bowl. It's hard to make a damn Super Bowl. So I mean, the Ravens haven't made a Super Bowl in a long time, in the Lamar era. So are they not in the gate? But they're in the gated community. Come on. So to me, the Bills, the Ravens, the Lions. I mean, because otherwise it's just Kansas City and Philadelphia. Who else are you going to put in there? The 49ers? I mean, they fell off a lot last year. So, like, making the Super Bowl, I think, is extremely difficult. So I don't think you can have the criteria you must make it to a Super Bowl, within a recent time period. The way I would look at it, Spin Max. So to me, the Lions are there. The Bills are there. I mean, how do you look at the Bills? The Bills are like a model franchise. And same thing with the Ravens. I mean, these are model franchises. And unfortunately, one of them is in our division, which sucks. But we at least have a model to go by. Dolphins and Saints in the ghetto, JoJo says. I mean, I think, Miami fans would probably argue, wait a minute, we made the playoffs twice in the McDaniels era. How are we in the ghetto? And I would say, yeah, but one of those games you started Skylar Gray, the Thompson gunner. And in the other one, you got your clock cleaned. So they made the playoffs. So how can you be a ghetto team if you're making the playoffs, JoJo? That would be so. I don't know. To me, Miami's like the one that's like between ghetto and middle class. They're probably like in the middle here. Like they're probably scratching and clawing, trying to get out of the ghetto. They're almost out. They're almost out, but not quite in the middle class just yet. Saints being in the ghetto is kind of funny because they had that 20-year run of greatness with Peyton and Breeze. And they've been on hard times, though, lately. They've been in hard times lately. Infrared Jets here talking about Eric Washington. SpinMax says the Lions are recent contenders. They are applying to get into the gate. They need a few more good years. Well, we don't have like a gate application layer. I like to keep it simple. Like, I've seen some of these tiered lists, SpinMax, and like that people do, like Brandon Perna and Tom Grossi and so forth. And they'll have like ten categories, to fit these teams in, you know, which is, it's kind of like, okay, if you do that, then you can put people in different, much different um, levels. But if we're just doing three, which keeps it simpler, but then again, teams aren't going to fit in perfectly. To me, the Lions are in the gated community. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm overstating them. Now they could fall back this year. Don't forget they lost their coaches, right? They lost Ben Johnson, they lost Aaron Glenn, they lost a bunch of their coaches, Tanner Enstrom and a bunch of others. And their new offensive coordinator, John Morton, is not exactly very highly regarded by the community at large. Now, maybe it'll be okay because they already established what they want to do with Goff and everything. But um, to me, I'm putting the Lions in the gated community. I also like the Lions in the gated community as a story, Spin Max. Like they were in the ghetto, like in the worst part of the ghetto with us, with the worst teams, the Bears, uh, the Browns, um, like the worst of the worst for a long, long time. Even though they had Barry Sanders and they had Stafford and they had Megatron, they had all these people. They just couldn't win. They couldn't get it together. So I like as a story, the Lions were so bad for so long. Same old Lions is something that people said. And um, now they've climbed and clawed their way out of it. And I like the idea that now they're in the gated community. I mean, the other thing is they really should have gone to the Super Bowl last year. I mean, they had a team, but then they got devastated by injuries. Their whole defense got devastated by injuries, basically, including one of the best, edge players in the NFL, Hutchinson. So I don't know. I'm keeping him in the gated community. I understand they haven't taken the last step, and maybe they haven't done it for long enough. Like the Ravens have done it for a long time. Like they they're just always they're always going to make the playoff. Now Lamar has to take the next step. The only real bad thing you could truly say about Lamar Jackson is he needs to take the next step in the playoffs and get his team to the Super Bowl. That's about all you can say bad about Lamar Jackson. And same thing I guess for Josh Allen. Those two are pretty much in the same boat trying to knock off Mahomes. But the problem is you got the Swifties, you got Travis Kelsey and the Swifties, and so you got to beat all those people, and you also have to beat the referees, which that's a lot of different people to beat. So that's that. Oh, see, no, it's weird, Jojo. I just clicked your name and it took me to your took me to your profile on YouTube. So I got to be careful with this thing. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And let me know if the audio ever goes out here. We're doing a test stream. Jojo, Bills draft extremely well and are yeah, that's the whole thing. They got their quarterback, and now I mean they don't always draft well. Kair Lamb is a famous bust, a first round bust, but in that same draft they found Christian Benford. So they're very smart in what they do. I mean, Keon Coleman wasn't exactly a great pick, at least not yet. But they're very smart in what they do, and once you have the quarterback, he can mask a lot of a lot of roster uh, weaknesses, let's say. But yeah, in to get to yeah, infrared. We in to get to like that old. Isn't it an Elvis song? Da da da, the baby cries, and da da da, in the get to. I think it's an old Elvis song. And we in to get to. Sean McAteer. Hi, Frankie. Sean, good to see you. Washington should be in between the gated community and middle class. Washington. Well, Washington, I mean, based off of what, Sean? 1 year? I mean, yeah, they're knocking on the door. They got it looks like so maybe they're a little bit higher. I mean, but then you'd have to say the same thing about the Texans, wouldn't you? I mean, the Texans are in the same boat as the Commanders, pretty much. And and then probably San Francisco also, because San Francisco had one bad year last year, but they could be right back at it. So maybe they're a little higher. I would say probably the teams in the middle class knocking into trying to get into that gated community, the Commanders, the Texans, and the Niners. The Niners would have been back in the gate are normally in the gate. They fell out of the gated community. They got kicked out last year. They were in the gated community. Everything was all nice, and then they got evicted. Get out of here. So, and what about the Cowboys? I mean, the Cowboys, I mean, people forget before last year, they had 3 12-win seasons in a row. Now they fell short in the playoffs in kind of disappointing and embarrassing at times fashion, but still they had 3 12-win seasons under McCarthy and with Dak. And then last year Dak gets hurt and the season goes to crap, but they're you could say they're in the gated community, but then again they've had a lot of playoff failures. The 49ers have made it to the Super Bowl and then fell short. So they probably have the greatest claim to maybe gated community status. You could say, wait a minute, we're 1 year and then we fall out of the gated community and we get evicted out of our mansion with our maids and our butlers and our French maids walking around with their French maid outfits, cleaning everything. We got to go back to the middle class without no maids and no butlers. What? So the 49ers, the Cowboys, the Commanders, and the Texans, I think you'd put in that situation there. So what happens if I click this? Okay, then it goes away. Okay. And this switches to private for some reason. Okay. And then, well, hang on, let me just send one email. There's one person I'm not seeing in this chat room named Phil Adams. I want to see if I can get him over here. Hang on. And we'll just continue to. Maybe Rumble Studio is the answer. What if Rumble Studio turns out to be the best? Huh. So see if we can get Phil in here. SpinMax says, I understand. They gated communities are short-term leases. 49ers went into, yeah, they got evicted. Get out of here. You can't, I mean, that's the thing about a gated community, right, SpinMax? These are rich people. You ever know any rich people? They're not going to take it for very long if you don't keep up your lawn. You know what I mean? If you start letting your dog poop all over the place, you know what I'm saying? You're parking your car in the wrong spot. They're going to kick your ass out because they like things a certain way in the gated community. You're messing up our moat. You start peeing in the moat, and you're going to get kicked out. You can't get drunk and pee in somebody's moat in the gated community because, of course, we got a mansion. You need a moat to keep people out. You don't want people coming into the mansion. But if you're already in the gated community and you get all gassed up on alcohol, and then you whip out your willy and you start peeing in somebody's moat because you got to pee like a racehorse, they're not going to put up with that. They're going to say you are no longer allowed in our gated community. You have violated the rules of the gated community, and now you have to go with the peasants in the middle class. You lose access to your butlers and your French maids and the fancy silverware and your filet mignon, okay, and your foie gras, okay, bro, and your $1,000 bottles of wine. All that goes away, and they evict you out of the gated community, and you go back to the middle class. And you could come to the gates of the gated community and try to get in, and they're going to say, "No, get out of here. You need to leave right now." Because we're not letting you in here. You're not of the quality that we expect in this gated community. Okay? You're lucky we don't kick your ass into the ghetto. And it's kind of hard to go from the gated community to the ghetto, at least in a short period of time. But it's hard to get out of the ghetto. I mean, the Jets have been in the ghetto for a long time. The Bears have been in the ghetto for a long time. The Browns have been in the ghetto for a long time. The Colts have been in the ghetto since Andrew Luck. The Titans have been in the ghetto since they let Vrabel go. The Raiders, man, the Raiders have been in the ghetto a long time. The Giants have been in the ghetto a long time. They did have that one playoff appearance, but that was fraudulent. That was fraudulent. The Panthers have been in the ghetto since Cam Newton got injured and fell off. The Cardinals have been in the ghetto for a long time, ever since I don't know. Well, they did make a Super Bowl with Carson Palmer, I believe, and also with. Did they make the Super Bowl with Carson Palmer, or was it? Um, what's his name? They imported one of these quarterbacks. They did make a Super Bowl, but that was a long time ago when Fitzgerald had that incredible playoffs. But that was a long time ago. They have not been good for a long, long time. And then you got the Saints, and the Saints have not been good since Drew Brees retired, basically. Uh, Max says, I'm a Jets fan. I have no rich neighbors. Yeah, but you may want to sneak over to the gated community in your area, Spin Max, and see how they live for a second. They got all the French maids. I mean, those French maids in those French maid outfits are pretty good. And they got all the butlers, they got all the moats, they got all the filet mignons, and they got everything. Tony Alexio is here. He says, "We shall rise from the ghetto. In the ghetto, where the baby cries and everybody dies in the ghetto." Well, I don't know if we're going to rise this year. We just looked at something earlier, Tony, that said we're getting the number one pick in the draft next year from Bleacher Report. So Bleacher Report doesn't think we're rising from the ghetto anytime soon, Tony. Uh, so yeah, man, infrared, we're in the ghetto. Now, can AG get us out of the ghetto? Well, this year it all depends on Justin Fields. Obviously, we're Fields maxing, as I often say, this year. So it just, can Justin Fields be the guy? Well, if he is, we might start to crawl out of the ghetto this year. It's possible. Uh, if not, then according to Bleacher Report, we're getting the first overall pick, and we're picking Lenora Sellers, and then we're in the rookie quarterback situation, and then it's just how good is that kid, and how can we surround him with talent, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, you think about it, you know, it's interesting how these teams got into the gated community. The Bills went 18 years, no playoffs. Then they get Josh Allen, and boom, takes them a couple of years, but now they're in there. The Ravens, the Ravens have had a long run of success. They have only had like three head coaches their whole career, the whole franchise, but they went from Flacco to Lamar. I mean, you know, and they had all that great defense with Flacco and all that. So they really never they have been a gated community. They're probably the longest standing gated community member. And then you have the Chiefs. The Chiefs were a laughing stock for a long time until they got Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and all them, but mostly Mahomes. And then the Eagles have been sort of an up and down franchise. Uh, Finally won one with Carson Wentz and then Nick Foles, and then they hit on the quarterback of Jalen Hurts, and that's what's going to enable them to have sustained success. And then you have Detroit that had a decades long period of being in the ghetto, and then they got the current regime of Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell and Jared Goff, and that is what has enabled them to get out of there. So basically, everybody except the Ravens has had long periods of being in the ghetto, and um, so there's some hope there. We now have had long periods. We have had 14, 15 years in the ghetto. So, but that's not unprecedented. I mean, look at the Browns. Look at the Bears. Bears have been in the ghetto since 1985, pretty much. The Browns. I mean, when were the Browns good? Exactly. When were Chat? Let me know what period of time were the Browns good? The 1940s? When were they good? The Cleveland Browns. Skills baby is here. But, not a lot of babies that have a lot of skills going on. Babies generally are very unskilled. Their brain isn't functioning at a high level. Yeah, they're just worried about crying and pooping and eating. They don't have a lot of skills. Skills, baby. We getting out of the ghetto, boys. Well, let's hope so. Tony Lexer says good coaching will push us from the bottom feeder mentality with the heart to win. Yeah, that's what we like to tell ourselves. The interesting thing is we had good defensive coaching this last time. We missed on Zach Wilson, and then we got Aaron Rodgers and what's his name and the OC, and all that offensive side of the house just fell apart. But we did have good defensive coaches the last couple of years. And Fred says, "Pound the like." Yeah, please do. We're trying this out on on Studio Rumble Studio, so I don't know how this is working. We're trying to see if maybe Restream is what is causing us the problem with our audio, which we had earlier. Uh, so far so good. 36 minutes on Rumble Studio, and the audio's been solid. Sean McAteer, I hope we can at least play competent football so I can watch a full game without covering my eyes or walking away. Well, this year is going to be all about the RPO offense. Uh, and it depends how well we run it. I mean, it depends how well we block, how well we do everything. Defense, I'm a little worried about, but we got to see. Pound the like. Yes, please do pound the like, especially if the audio is working on Rumble Studio. Maybe Rumble Studio is the answer after all. Maybe I don't need a new $3,000 computer. Skills, baby. The Patriots showed us the formula. Good coaching and good quarterback play equals sustained success. Well, that's true. I would say the formula was they found the greatest quarterback of all time. How good was um, Bill Belichick after Brady left? No good, no bueno. So you got to have it all, really. You need quarterback play, you need good offensive line, and then you need good coaching. Yes, and you need a smart general manager who's going to make good acquisitions on the margins because anybody can pick. Armand Membu. I could have picked Armand Membu. Anybody could have picked Mason Taylor the way he fell to us in the draft. I could have picked him. But where you make your money as a GM is on the margins. And we'll see if those fifth round picks are anything. If they are, that'll be a hell of a draft. But if not, then that's more of a typical outcome. Browns have never played in a Super Bowl. But when were they even any good, JoJo? Were they ever a consistent playoff contending team? Have never played in a Super Bowl, not even once. So the Browns, are the Cleveland Browns the worst team in the NFL in the history of the NFL? Looking at the entire history of the league, are they the worst franchise of all time? I'd like to know. Are the Cleveland Browns the worst franchise of all time? I mean, we're in the bottom five probably. Browns, probably the Bears, because the Browns and Bears and Jets go all the way back. They have long histories. You can't really say the Panthers. They don't have enough of a history. You can't really say. Um, I mean, the Colts, the Falcons. When was the Falcons team started? 1966. I guess they have a good history, the Falcons, but I mean, really, worst franchises: Browns, Bears, Jets. I mean, Ben Max has a question. With all our DBs, do you think the Jets will go to more press man and stick the box to stop runs? Who cares about a gated community when the Jets put everyone on an island? Well, uh, you can do that. The problem with that, Spin Max, is if you're talking about just straight man, then you're going to have Josh Allen run for 500 yards in the game. So why would you do that? You can't stop the run with even with a heavy box against Josh Allen if you're in man. straight man. He's just going to wait 3 seconds and then run. He's going to outrun everybody you put in the box, the ones you can't they can't block up. So we'll play some man where it's not going to be as simple as this. We'll probably play something like two man. We'll probably play something like um, Ripley's zone match, something. The way to win in defense, in my opinion, these days is confusing the quarterback and not letting them know what the hell you're doing. Well, some of the best ways of doing that is zone matching and things like two man and other things that are disguises. So I would hope that Wilkes and Glenn have a lot of disguise going on. But nonetheless, one thing you do have to do is you have to beat the blocks of the offensive line with your defensive line. That helps. One way or another. There's only so much the linebackers can do as the second level. And my problem is we have a very weak defensive line right now, especially at the defensive tackle position. And if those guys are getting blown off the line of scrimmage, you're going to have a problem stopping the run no matter what you do with how many people you put in the box because your first line's getting pushed back. So yeah, your second line may come in 6, 7 yards down the way, but I mean, then the guy already has 6, 7 yards, and that's a good gainer. So I think the defensive let's put this back up. I think the defensive see, this is weird how this works. I think the defensive answers we are not going to know because we don't know what Glenn and Wilkes have cooking up. Spin Max. We can make guesses right now based on what Detroit did and so forth. But Steve Wilkes is our defensive coordinator. And I think Glenn and Wilkes are going to put their minds together and come up with some kind of scheme. And we won't really know what that is until the season starts. So I don't know. I'm worried about a run defense. It's hard to imagine a run defense being good without good defensive tackles. We have one in Quinnen, but you really need four. And you might say we have 1.5 because Leonard Taylor's a good pass rush guy. He hasn't shown he can be good against the run yet. So you might say we have 1.5. You need four. So to me, we got a problem. But then again, let's see what Glenn and Wilkes, when they put their heads together, let's see what kind of defense they come up with. But I don't think running man is a panacea like a lot of people think, Spin Max. I really don't. Infrared says, I'd hate to be that team that goes to 4 Super Bowls and lose them all. Sucks to be a Bills fan. Yeah. I mean, that's the one thing we have over them, right? We won that one. They went to four. We only went to one, Infrared. They went to four. Problem is they lost all four. I think, I don't know. It's hard to say, but this could be their year, or it could be Lamar's year, or Mahomes could go again. I mean, you know, you got to think that I would put it this way. At some point in the Josh Allen era, they got to at least go to the Super Bowl. I mean, now they have 10 more years plus of trying with him, so got a long way to keep trying it. But you got to think he's at least got to go there once, at least once, for the Josh Allen era to be successful. Now, just depends on how you grade it. I mean, they've had great teams every single year. I mean, would you rather be a Bills fan right now in this era where every year you've been in the playoffs and you've had exciting playoff wins and then exciting playoff losses where you're crushed. I can't believe it. I mean, they've given their fans a lot of excitement if you think about it, Infrared. Just thinking about it from like every year after year 2 or 3 with Allen, they've been playoff contenders. So you have a regular season where you get a lot of wins. That's fun. Then you get to go to the playoffs. That's fun. And they've had exciting and really good playoff wins. And then they've just haven't been able to take the next step. So would you rather be their fans or Jet fans? I mean, we haven't been in the playoffs 15 years, Infrared. I mean, how can you say you'd rather be a Jet fan right now than a Bills fan? And the Bills have 10 more years of this, at least. as do the Ravens and the Chiefs. I mean, those guys are not leaving the gated community for a long time, I don't think. Those quarterbacks are relatively young. They're going to be elite for a long time. So I guess, and the same thing goes for Jalen Hurts and Jared Goff too. You think Goff's older than he is, but he's pretty young relatively. So I don't know. The Bills have given their fans a lot of excitement over these last whatever it's been 5 6 years. The Browns struggled with O.J. Simpson. Yeah, well, I don't think O.J. Simpson really killed Nicole Brown. Bill's so close, a Zerline kick. Yeah, but that's regular season. Tony Alexio, we stole Boomer. Yeah, Boomer Esiason. Tony Alexio, Browns keep us. So I guess the Browns we're saying are the worst, right? The Browns are the worst franchise in the history of football. Man, that sounds weird to say. The Browns, the Bears, and the Jets. I mean, when were the Bears ever good? 1985, and that was it? I mean, Detroit. Infrared says, yeah, Browns definitely at the bottom of the pool. Tony Alexio, Glenn will play best player, unlike Salah, who made no adjustments. Mm, okay. I'm worried about the run defense, too. Yep. Now, the other thing is, I don't think we're playing wide nine with this crew. We might play a little of it, but one thing we don't know is maybe they got something cooking. I mean, Wilkes and Glenn are very smart defensive guys. I'll give them that much. And they looked at the roster and they said, all we need is Noddy and Cowart and Tufele in addition to what we have. Okay. I disagree, but I'm not a defensive smarty pants like Glenn and Wilkes. Right? They know what they're doing on defense. So for some reason, they thought Quinnen and LT3 and Noddy and Cowart and Tufele are enough. I mean, because they didn't sign anybody better and they didn't draft anybody. And we got two UDFAs in here, but they're UDFAs. So that's the one thing you would look at and say, well, I mean, Wilkes and Glenn, they're considered very smart defensive coaches, so they must have something in mind. what what that is, I don't know, but we'll have to wait and see. Uh, Maybe we're going to two gap out of an even front. That would be weird, but maybe that would be Frankie's hint of the day. It's possible it's possible that perhaps they have some sort of weird front they're going to run, which could be a two gapping front out of a four down situation. That's unusual. I've never seen that, but maybe that's what they're doing. In which case, they don't necessarily need the highest quality defensive tackles. We just need them to do certain things, play certain roles, and the heroes of the defense are basically going to be Sherwood and Quincy. Maybe. I don't know. That could be, but that's highly speculative and would be highly unusual. But it's the type of thing that maybe that's what those two have cooking up. Because it's hard for me to understand. We have Steve Wilkes here and we have Aaron Glenn here. And they told us they're trying to win now. And they constructed a defensive roster that's very hard to understand what they're doing. Now we do have a lot of good players on it, but as I showed you on the rosters last week, we have the fewest average and above players in the whole AFC East. So they didn't really attack free agency aggressively, and there were some very easy maneuvers they could have made to that wouldn't have cost much to improve the roster. But they were aggressive with Brandon Stevens, not aggressive with Levi Onwuzurike as one example. And so, uh, you know, uh, it's what the confusing thing is if you don't stop the run, your pass defense doesn't really matter. If teams can just run on you, they'll just keep running on you. And no matter how good your defensive backfield is and whatever you're playing press man, okay, great. They'll just run the ball. We're going to play press man on the outside. Great. How's that going to help you stop the run? When your defensive tackles are getting blown off the line of scrimmage and opening, and there's gigantic holes for the running backs to run through. So that's what concerns me. Pass defense doesn't really matter if you can't hold the line. You have to hold the line of scrimmage in order to stop the run, and then put teams in second and third and long, and then they got to pass, and then your defensive backs and your pass rushers matter, obviously. So that's what concerns me at the moment. But on the other hand, Aaron Glenn and Steve Wilkes are universally considered very, very smart defensive minds. They are. Universally. I've never heard anybody say anything bad about Glenn and Wilkes as far as their acumen with regard to defense. And in the case of, and they're both very experienced. Wilkes has been a head coach twice and been a defensive coordinator a long time, and a defensive coach a very long time. So, oh, so we'll have to see what they do. But so far, it's a little underwhelming, and I'm a little concerned about it. Now, if they had come out and said, well, we're going to need a year to get our foundation under us and blah, 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 then you'd say, okay, it's a rebuild, it's a retool, whatever. See you in 26. But they didn't say that. They said, we're trying to win now. And they told the players we're going to win now. So we'll see. Joe says, too many people are drinking the green Kool-Aid. All right. Was forced to be a Jet in '89. Well, forced by who, Infrared? And who forced you? They put a gun to your head? Spin Max Jet DBs are probably the strongest position group. Glenn is going to lean heavily on them. Yeah, I just explained that, Spin Max. Mooj is a question mark on his moves. I hope Brady Cook will be great. Yeah, Mooj so far. I mean, we gotta give him another year. It's not fair to judge him just on this year, but he's been kind of meh. I mean, he did the obvious things. He signed Justin Fields. He signed Sherwood, so that was good. And he drafted Membu and Taylor. Those were obvious, easy things, and he didn't screw them up. So you got to give him credit for that. And Az Thomas was a great value pick. All right, and it looks like Malachi Moore may be a good value pick as well. Well, so he basically got the easy stuff right, and then the middle stuff he just didn't. I don't like what he did with Brandon Stevens, considering what else you could have done with $12 million. Um, and you can say the defensive backs are going to be the strength of the team, but if you can't stop the run, the defensive backs don't matter. You have to stop the run. You can't be, it's really hard to be imbalanced as a defense, because if you're imbalanced, then the other team's going to know what your imbalance is and exploit it, otherwise known as a weakness. And if you come at it with very poor defensive linemen, they're just going to attack your defensive linemen. They're going to run A and B gap runs all day long. And they're not going to worry too much about passing the ball. So that's what's concerning. Now, like I said, Wilkes and Glenn and even Washington that Infrared was talking about, Eric Washington, our defensive line coach, all very well regarded people by pretty much everyone. I haven't heard anybody say anything negative about the defensive acumen of Aaron Glenn, Steve Wilkes, or even Eric Washington. So you have to think they're cooking up something, but looking at it from the outside, I don't know what it is. But, I give them the benefit of the doubt. We'll start to see what it looks like in training camp, and we'll start to get those reports from the beat writers, and the beat writers are good for a few things. One thing that they're good at is telling you what things have looked like from the past. Does this look better or worse than it used to look, than it looked last year? Right. Beat writers can tell you that because they're just using their eyes to see what's going on in the field. And they remember what it was like last year, and they can tell you, oh, this looks a lot better. Or, oh, no, this looks a lot worse. So we'll start to get those reports in training camp, and hopefully they're positive, and then that would be a good indicator. And then we got to see it obviously in the regular season. It's going to be an interesting year. I would say it's the year of intrigue. Maybe that's the way to put it. Because what is Justin Fields? Can Justin Fields be a superstar in this league that everybody thought he had the talent to do and potential? Can he finally reach that potential with the Jets? That'd be a nice little turn of fate. When usually other quarterbacks stink with us and then they go somewhere else and eventually become good, like a Darnold and a Geno Smith did. And so it'd be a nice little ironic twist where, hey, maybe we could get one of these guys who was cast out of Chicago and then cast out of Pittsburgh, and then he lands with us, and bada boom, he figures it out and is able to take it to the next level. So that's on the offensive side. And we have a pretty good offense. I mean, the line is solid. We got a good tight end. I wish we would get a veteran tight end in here, another one. We have the running backs, we have Garrett, and we have functional wide receivers who are going to play their roles. And if you want to know what those roles are, I recommend the video I just put up Friday, about Arian Smith, why we drafted him, and what role he's going to have in the RPO offense. Kind of explains the type of wide receivers that we need and why. So there's that. And then on the defense, we have all these defensive coaches, Glenn Wilkes, all these people. And the acquisitions on the defensive side, especially for the big men, were um, underwhelming, let's say. And so the question really is why? Why were the acquisitions underwhelming? What was the coaching staff saying about getting by with Nadi and Cowart and Tufele, along with Quinnen and LT3? Or do they have high hopes for Federian Mathis? I mean, really? Now maybe they do. Maybe they scouted Federian Mathis and they're like, he's our defensive tackle 3. And LT3 is going to up his game against the run. He's going to be defensive tackle 2. And therefore, we just needed one of these other 3 guys to be defensive tackle 4. And maybe. I don't know. I mean, that's something you'll see in training camp. If Federian Mathis, starts showing up and showing out in training camp, then you would go, oh, well, we have a player that we thought was just roster fringe, but actually he's going to fulfill some of the promise that a lot of people thought he had coming into the draft when he came out of college. So it's the year of intrigue. Justin Fields, can he do it? And then defense, what the hell are we running and how? In particular, I'm interested in the front. I'm not so much interested in the back. We're going to run in the back. We're going to run what everybody runs. We're going to run 2 men. We're going to run, some single high. We're going to run, some cover 3. We're going to run. I'm not so concerned about that. I'm concerned about stopping the run. How are we going to do that? And you generally do that with your defensive front. So it'll be intriguing to watch and see what the hell we're doing there. Infrared. The Lions played a 4-3 and man covered 66% of their dropbacks. Well, that's what you say, infrared. I don't know if that's true. Other teams will sniff that out. Yeah. And what we said earlier, I don't know if you were here, infrared, but if you run a lot of man, Josh Allen's going to kill you. Like straight man, not 2 man, straight man. If you run a lot of straight man, Josh Allen will kill you with his legs. And same thing with Drake May. And if you think you're going to man cover Tyreek Hill, straight man, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, you're out of your mind. So some things may work against certain teams that have certain kind of quarterbacks. Like, the Lions had to play Kirk Cousins a lot, in Aaron Glenn's tenure. Well, Kirk Cousins isn't going to beat you with his legs, you know. Now, they had to play Justin Fields with the Bears, and Justin Fields did carve up Detroit at times. And then you had the Packers. The Packers had a combination of Rodgers and Love during Glenn's tenure over there as the DC. And with Rodgers, you can run man if you want because he's not going to kill you with his legs. But then Love will. So a lot of times it really just depends on who your opponent is. If you're going to run straight man, you better have a statue quarterback like Kirk Cousins. Otherwise, the guy's just going to kill you with his legs, especially if you're playing Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson or somebody elite like that, Kyler Murray, elite running. So, yeah, it just depends on your opponent. You can't just translate, okay, they did this on average, therefore. So we'll have to see. All right. So I think the audio has held up pretty good. We've been going for an hour now on this test. No Phil Adams, but nonetheless, we have held up audio wise, it seems like. So perhaps Rumble Studio is the way to go moving forward. I don't know. Uh, yeah, it seems like we can do a lot of different things. Okay, we're done with this NFL as a city. Let's see how we switch this back. Oh yeah, look at that. Uh, that works. And studio. So we just have to put some. So we could put the live chat up here. That looks pretty good. Banners, campaigns. I don't have any campaigns. Live chat, studio. So then if I added some graphics up here, maybe we could have graphics and see what that's all about. Overlay video clip. See if we add a graphic. Oh, we can't do that. Yeah. Well, let's put this thing up here. See if this works. It's a Yeah, but where does that go? Let's see if this thing works. You gotta test out all the features. Create graphic. Okay, Joe. Ah, but now that's too big. So maybe not perfect, but there's- don't have- no, I think that Rumble Studio has held up pretty well. Perhaps that's the way forward. So I'm gonna just keep playing with Rumble Studio. Let's take off this thing. Remove. Um, see if see if it plays out better than Restream. Possible. It's possible. All right. So thank you for joining me on this test stream. Thanks everybody in the chat. I'll see you next week, and maybe I'll use Rumble Studio going forward. All right. Thanks everybody. See you next week.